One of the strategies that I find fascinating, which I do share in the book in that space, is actually stable coin cash flow.
What was the most surprising and surprising lucrative cash out of the 21? What's maybe the one that's most surprising or not as thought of that folks could get involved right now to get some cash flow going?
Yeah, there's some very interesting strategies, and I share one, and there's 5 bonus ones in there, spoiler alert. But yeah, I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind is there's a lot of ways that people can generate wealth. And essentially, how I came up with the book, or the idea for the book, is, on my show, I've interviewed over the past six and a half years now, I've interviewed over 700 cash flow ninjas. And I went pretty wide. So we talk about real estate, business, commodities, paper assets. We've covered crypto and blockchain investments since 2016. So I went pretty wide. And the question that kept coming up was, MC, you've interviewed all these folks with all these different in different niches. What are some of the most interesting things that have been shared on your show? So eventually I put it together all in a book. And one of the things that folks can really take a look at right now, from a standpoint, is cover some crypto and blockchain in there. Now, when people think about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies, they think speculation, they think risky, they think gambling, they think buying a coin at $1 that goes to $1,000, or they think about meme coins, whether it's doggy coins and so forth. There's a very, very big array of ways of how to essentially generate cash flow in the crypto and blockchain space. And just as with all of the other niches, you can position yourself as a saver, you can position yourself as an investor, and you can also position yourself as a speculator. You can do the same thing in a lot of other niches that we cover in the book as well. So one of the strategies that I find fascinating, which I do share in the book in that space, is actually stable coin cash flow. Now, a lot of folks that are not familiar with cryptocurrencies, maybe they've heard of Bitcoin, they've heard of Ethereum, they've heard of a couple of other cryptos, but what they're familiar with is stable coins. Now, stable coins are coins essentially mimic the price behavior of a commodity of some sort, and in most cases, it's, for example, for gold, that mimics the price behavior of gold. There are others that mimic price behavior of the US dollar. So you can essentially have a stable coin such as USDC, which essentially is tied to the US dollar. Now, a lot of folks would look at that and say, am I getting crypto to get away from the US dollar? Why would I want to look even interested at all in a coin that mimics the price behavior of the US dollar? Well, number one, we're still living in a world where the US dollar is the world reserve currency. It still is at the time of recording. And what happens in crypto is there's a lot of liquidity, obviously. People buy and sell and transact on exchanges. But essentially, how do you go from the world that we live in today to the crypto world to buy, for example, Bitcoin or Ethereum, or trade specifically? Well, you have to be able to convert dollars into something which can then be traded onto markets. This has created a massive demand for stablecoins, because it was just maybe investors in the beginning, such as us, that started buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other coins. Now you've got big institutions. So just to share with you the flow of how it works, of how institutions buy crypto, is they have to move a lot of money onto an exchange, and then they want to purchase a coin, let's just say Bitcoin, at a specific price. So how do they do that? You can't essentially just go onto a crypto exchange and just switch around dollars if you're a huge institution that's moving hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions of dollars on there. So what they do is they convert, let's just say, US dollar holdings into a stable coin such as USDC or Tether or so forth, and then they move it onto an exchange. And then they set their trades, which they then trade out of the stable coin into a Bitcoin. The other thing that plays, so that's the first reason why there's a demand for stable coins, is money moving in and out of exchanges from huge institutions and other investors. The second piece is, let's say you were an early adopter of crypto, and in 2015, the Bitcoin, right? Sitting pretty nicely right now. You're sitting in a very good position. Bought it very low. It obviously has gone much higher since 2015. So how you get to access some of your profits? Well, you're going to be stuck with a very large tax problem, a capital gain. And I know you talk a lot about that on the show, solutions for folks. So what a lot of people have done is, instead of selling, let's just for example say their Bitcoin, they would go onto a lending platform, place it as collateral, and get a loan which is secured by the Bitcoin, which they can access liquidity or money to then pay for expenses, invest in other assets such as real estate and so forth. And that loan is tax-free, and it's usually issued in a stable coin such as USDC, for example. So there's a demand for it. So how can investors generate cash flow within the next 30 days in that specific niche? Well, because there's such a demand, folks can generate cash flow by going onto a lending platform, stable coins, swapping your US dollars for USDC, for example, and then stake it on a lending platform, and you get paid a very generous return, much more higher than you would get in any money market account, any other savings vehicle. Some of them, range from 7 to 8% that you're getting as a return on just some of the stable that you're staking. Of course, there's different interest rates, and I know folks listening to this will say, "Oh, I know of a place that you can, you can stable coins much bigger return." There's risk involved in everything, right? So obviously you have to understand that there's different lending platforms. There's decentralized platforms. There's centralized platforms. You have to understand those risks. Centralized platforms are less riskier for newbies than, for example, decentralized. Especially if they're in the United States, they fall under the regulatory environment in the United States. The SEC oversees them. So a lot more folks are more comfortable with that. And then obviously there's a lower interest on that paid than some of the riskier stuff. But that was essentially the one crypto strategy which folks can do absolutely today. There's another one that we cover, which is a little bit different for a different
pause right there.
appetite.
Yeah, pause right there.
Yeah.
So that's really good. I want to make sure we captured all that, right? And thank you so much for sharing that. So you can stake let's say your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, let's say those are the two, against these stable coins, right? Or lending, the collateral is the Bitcoin or the Ethereum, and the tool which it could be staked against or people can loan are these stable coins, of which it could be 7% interest, 8% interest, depending on the coin, maybe I'm missing something. Is that right so far?
Yeah. So here's a good way to explain it. So Elon Musk with Tesla, everybody knows Tesla shares by now. So Elon, and this was a couple of quarters ago, maybe shared in the report for Tesla, is that Elon actually borrowed against these Tesla shares up to $500 million at a very low interest rate to go and invest. So people would say, "What? Wait a second. So he didn't sell his Tesla shares?" No, because he would then pay taxes on it, right? So he used these Tesla shares, and he did this through an institution which will give him a loan secured by his Tesla shares at an interest rate that he can go then and use. You could do the same thing with your Bitcoin and your Ethereum. But
just like real estate too, if you were to do like a refinance of real estate or take a second position somewhere else or cross collateralize multiple properties, essentially is what you're saying is, hey, Mr. Banker, like here's my assets, here's the value. What will you loan against that, right? And obviously, if the value goes too low, they might have a capital call. There might be a couple of things that you have some risk involved, but it's a tax-free event when you refinance, which, by the way, is essentially the way the legality of the Deferred Sales Trust works, in that you don't sell it. You don't sell it to the open market. You basically transfer or sell it to the trust in exchange for a promissory note to pay you over time. And by moving from an owner to a lender, or just maintaining ownership or becoming a lender, that capital is in a tax deferral state or a tax-free state, which is a beautiful thing.